Reindeer is a circumpolar species. You can find it here in Europe, in Asia and in North America. And you normally think of the tundra ecosystems when you are talking about deer, although there are some forests subpopulations around. In general, the reindeer adapt to these conditions by feeding up during summer and then starving during winter. But that might differ between different populations, because in some places we have really stable winter conditions with good access to forage, and that means basically that reindeer can even gain weight during winter, notably at low population densities. But in other areas you have a more variable winter conditions. You might find rain and then icing, which prevents the reindeer from efficient feeding. And then reindeer could adapt to that by even eating more in summer. And of course, eventually that will be a problem if you talk of this in terms of climate change. Starvation in winter could lead to quite severe die-offs of animals, and in some cases population collapses. That is notably the case if we have high densities and then bad winter conditions at the same time. Then we see a lot of animals dying. But of course, reindeer could adapt to these conditions, and we have seen that if they are used to having bad winter conditions, they try to cope to that by feeding more in summer and spending less time in reproducing. Of course, on one hand, bad winter conditions will lead to more animals starving. That is notably the case if we have this kind of freeze-thaw events that hinder good access to the food. That is making trouble for reindeer. But this is kind of complicated because we expect more difficult winter conditions, but at the same time we expect the earlier spring green-up. So that could, in a sense, improve the conditions for reindeer, because earlier spring means earlier access to green forage, which is actually good for reindeer. So we don't know how this combination of poor winter conditions and early spring will eventually affect reindeer populations. Not as a species. We see several reports of populations declining, but as a species at large, it's not a threatened species. For instance, in our region, reindeer have increased quite dramatically over the last decade. So you will see different patterns depending on where you are looking. Of course it can fly. We all believe in Santa Claus, don't we?